Sarah Chen woke up at 5 in the morning just like every other day. The alarm clock on her nightstand was old and loud, but she always turned it off before it could wake her parents. She had been getting up early for 3 years now, ever since. Her twin sister Maya left for the military. The farmhouse was quiet and cold. Sarah put on her worn jeans and a thick sweater that used to belong to Maya. Everything seemed too big for her small frame, but she did not mind. Clothes were just clothes, and there was work to do. Outside, the Minnesota air was crisp and clean. The sun had not come up yet, and the sky was a dark blue color that made everything look peaceful. Sarah loved this time of day when the world belonged to her alone. She walked to the chicken coop and scattered feed for the birds. They clucked and rushed toward the food, happy to see her. "Good morning, ladies," Sarah said softly to the chickens. She talked to them every day. They were better listeners than most people she knew. After feeding the chickens, Sarah checked on the vegetable garden. The tomatoes were growing well, and the corn was getting tall. Her father had taught her how to grow things when she was little. He said farming was about patience and hope. You plant seeds and trust they will grow. Sarah liked that idea. The school bus came at 7:30. Sarah always sat in the third row on the right side. She had been sitting in the same spot for 4 years. It was not the best seat, but it was not the worst either. The best seats were in the back where the popular kids sat. The worst seats were in the very front where everyone could see you. Chad Morrison got on the bus at the second stop. He was tall and strong, with blonde hair and blue eyes that all the girls liked. His father owned the biggest farm in the county, and Chad never let anyone forget it. He walked down the bus aisle like he owned it too. "Look who's wearing her sister's old clothes again," Chad said loudly as he passed Sarah's seat. Some kids laughed. Sarah looked down at her hands and said nothing. Brittany Walsh got on at the third stop. She had long red hair and always wore expensive clothes that her mother bought from the city. Brittany sat next to Chad and looked around the bus like a queen checking her kingdom. "Sarah Chen," Brittany said in a sweet voice that was not sweet at all. "Did you bring us another one of your special lunches today?" Sarah's face turned red. Yesterday, Brittany had taken Sarah's lunch and showed everyone the sandwich her mother had made. It was just peanut butter and jelly on homemade bread, but Brittany acted like it was something disgusting. "I bet it's another peanut butter sandwich," Chad said. "Poor farm girl can't afford real food." More kids laughed. Sarah wanted to tell them that her mother's homemade bread was better than anything from the store. She wanted to say that their family was not poor, just careful with money. But the words stayed stuck in her throat like they always did. At Jefferson High School, Sarah walked to her locker with her head down. The hallways were crowded and noisy. Kids pushed past her like she was invisible. Sometimes Sarah thought being invisible might be better than being noticed by Chad and his friends. In first period English class, Mrs. Patterson was talking about a book called To Kill a Mockingbird. Sarah had read it twice and loved it. The story was about standing up for what was right even when it was hard. Sarah wished she could be brave like the characters in the book. "Who can tell me what courage means in this story?" Mrs. Patterson asked. Sarah knew the answer, but she did not raise her hand. Chad was in this class too, and he always made fun of her when she spoke up. Instead, she listened to other students give answers that were not as good as the one in her head. During lunch, Sarah sat alone at a table near the windows. She liked watching the trees outside while she ate. Her mother had packed her a turkey sandwich, an apple, and homemade cookies. The food was good, but Sarah barely tasted it. She was too busy trying to be invisible. Chad and Brittany sat at the popular table in the center of the cafeteria. Their table was always full of kids who laughed too loud and acted like they were the most important people in the world. Sarah watched them sometimes and wondered what it would be like to have so many friends. "Hey, farm girl," Chad called across the cafeteria. "What's for lunch today, chicken feed?" The whole cafeteria got quiet. Everyone turned to look at Sarah. Her face burned with shame, but she did not say anything. She never said anything. Brittany pulled out her phone and pointed it at Sarah. "This is so sad," she said in a fake sad voice. "Poor little Sarah eating, all alone." Sarah stood up quickly and walked away. Behind her, she could hear Chad and Brittany laughing. Other kids joined in. The sound followed her down the hallway like an angry bee. In the bathroom, Sarah looked at herself in the mirror. She saw a plain girl with straight black hair and dark eyes. She was not pretty like Brittany or confident like the other popular girls. She was just Sarah Chen, the quiet farm girl who never fought back. The rest of the school day was the same as always. Sarah went to her classes, did her work, and tried to stay out of everyone's way. In science class, she was working on a big project about solar energy. It was worth almost half her grade, and she had been working on it for weeks. The project was good, maybe even great, but Sarah had not told anyone about it. She did not want Chad and his friends to find another reason to make fun of her. After school, Sarah waited for the bus in the same spot she always waited. Chad and his friends stood nearby, talking and laughing. Sometimes they looked at her and whispered things she could not hear. Sarah pretended to read a book, but she was really listening to make sure they were not planning something mean. On the bus ride home, Sarah sat in her usual seat and looked out the window. The farms and fields looked peaceful in the afternoon sun. She thought about Maya, who was somewhere far away doing important things. Maya had always been the brave one, the strong one. Even when they were little, Maya was the one who stood up to bullies and protected other kids. Sarah remembered the day Maya left for the military. They had hugged for a long time, and Maya had whispered in her ear, "Take care of yourself, little sister. I'll be back before you know it." But Maya had been gone for 3 years now, and Sarah was still waiting. She got letters sometimes, but they did not say much about what Maya was doing. The letters were always cheerful and full of questions about home, but Sarah could tell that Maya was busy with important things. At home, Sarah helped her mother cook dinner and told her parents about her day. She did not mention Chad or Brittany or the laughter in the cafeteria. She just talked about her classes and her science project. Her parents smiled and asked questions, and for a while, Sarah felt safe and loved. That night, Sarah sat at her desk and worked on her science project. The solar panel model was almost finished, and her research paper was 20 pages long. She had worked hard on it, and she was proud of what she had created. Maybe tomorrow would be different. Maybe Chad and his friends would leave her alone. But deep down, Sarah knew that tomorrow would be just like today, and the day after that would be the same too. She was trapped in a pattern that she did not know how to break. All she could do was hope that someday things would change. The next morning started like any other, but Sarah felt different. Something heavy sat in her chest like a stone that had been growing bigger each day. She fed the chickens and tended the garden, but her heart was not in it. Even the peaceful morning air could not calm the worry in her mind. At school, Chad was waiting by her locker. This was new. Usually he just made comments on the bus or during lunch, but today he was standing right next to her locker with 3 of his friends. Sarah's stomach dropped as she walked toward them. Well, Chad said with a mean smile. "If it isn't our favorite farm girl. We were just talking about you, Sarah." Sarah tried to open her locker, but Chad put his hand on it to keep it closed. His friends stood around them in a circle, blocking her from walking away. Other students walked past, but no one stopped to help. They all kept their heads down and hurried to their own lockers. "We heard you're working on some big science project," Brittany said as she joined the group. "Something about solar power?" Sarah's heart started beating fast. How did they know about her project? She had been so careful not to talk about it. Then she remembered that Jake Torres sat behind her in science class. Jake was one of Chad's friends, and he must have been listening when she talked to the teacher about her research. "I bet it's just some stupid thing made from trash," Chad said, "just like everything else poor people make." "Leave me alone," Sarah said quietly. It was the first time she had said anything back to them in weeks. Chad's friends laughed like Sarah had told a funny joke. "Oh, she speaks," one of them said. "The little farm mouse has a voice." "What did you say to me?" Chad asked, stepping closer. He was much taller than Sarah, and his shadow fell across her face. "I said leave me alone," Sarah repeated, but her voice was even quieter this time. Brittany pulled out her phone. "This is perfect," she said. Sarah Chen finally stands up for herself. Too bad she sounds like a scared little girl. Sarah felt her face turn red. She tried to push past Chad to get to her locker, but he moved to block her again. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked. "We're not done talking to you." The bell rang for first period. Chad and his friends walked away, laughing and high-fiving each other. Sarah stood by her locker, shaking. She was late for class, but she could not move. Her legs felt like water. The rest of the morning was terrible. In every class, Sarah felt like everyone was looking at her and whispering. Brittany had probably told half the school about what happened at the lockers. Sarah tried to focus on her lessons, but her mind kept going back to Chad's mean smile and the way his friends had laughed. During lunch, Sarah ate her sandwich as fast as she could. She wanted to go to the library where it was quiet and safe, but as she was throwing away her trash, Chad appeared beside her. "Going somewhere, farm girl?" he asked. Before Sarah could answer, Chad grabbed her backpack and pulled it off her shoulders. Sarah tried to grab it back, but Chad held it high above, his head where she could not reach it. "What's in here?" Chad asked as he unzipped the backpack. "Let's see what kind of treasures poor people carry around." Chad dumped everything out of the backpack onto the floor. Sarah's books scattered everywhere, along with her pencils, her calculator, and her lunch money. But the worst thing was when her science project folder hit the ground and opened up. All of her research papers and photos of her solar panel model spread across the dirty cafeteria floor. "Oh no," Chad said in a fake worried voice. "Looks like Sarah's big science project had an accident." Sarah dropped to her knees and started gathering her papers. Some of them had footprints on them now, and one page was covered in spilled milk from someone's lunch tray. 3 weeks of work was scattered on the ground like garbage. "This is so sad," Brittany said, pointing her phone at Sarah. Poor little Sarah trying to pick up her pathetic project. More students gathered around to watch. Some of them looked sorry for Sarah, but no one helped her. Everyone was too afraid of becoming Chad's next target. Sarah felt tears starting in her eyes, but she tried not to let them fall. She would not give Chad and Brittany the satisfaction of seeing her cry. But when Sarah picked up her research paper and saw that someone had stepped on it with muddy shoes, the tears came anyway. She could not stop them. 20 pages of careful research about solar energy and climate change, all ruined. The pictures of her solar panel model were torn and dirty. Her neat handwriting was smeared and unreadable in some places. "Are you crying?" Brittany asked, moving her phone closer to Sarah's face. "This is perfect. Everyone needs to see this." Sarah tried to cover her face with her hands, but it was too late. Brittany had already recorded her tears and her panic. Sarah gathered the rest of her papers and ran to the bathroom. Behind her, she could hear Chad and his friends laughing louder than ever. In the bathroom, Sarah locked herself in a stall and cried. Her science project was due tomorrow, and now it was ruined. Even if she stayed up all night, she could not fix all the damage. The research paper would have to be printed again, and some of her notes were completely destroyed. Her solar panel model was at home, but the pictures and measurements were gone. Sarah thought about telling a teacher what happened, but what was the point? Chad would just say it was an accident. His friends would back up his story. And even if the teachers believed Sarah, what could they do? Give Chad detention? That would just make him angrier, and he would find new ways to make her life miserable. When Sarah got home that afternoon, she went straight to her room and closed the door. Her mother called up to ask if she wanted a snack, but Sarah said she was not hungry. She sat at her desk and looked at the damaged papers spread out in front of her. Some of them could be saved, but others were completely ruined. Sarah's laptop was old and slow, but she turned it on anyway. Maybe she could find some of her research online and print it again. But as she waited for the computer to start up, she felt more hopeless than ever. Even if she could fix the project, what would stop Chad from destroying it again? Or the next project? Or the one after that? That evening, Sarah tried to eat dinner with her parents, but the food tasted like cardboard. Her father asked about her science project, and Sarah had to lie. She said it was going well and that she was almost finished. She could not tell them the truth. They would want to call the school, and that would only make things worse. After dinner, Sarah went back to her room and tried to work on fixing her project. But every time she looked at the ruined papers, she felt angry and sad and hopeless all at the same time. She had worked so hard on this project. It was the best thing she had ever done for school, and Chad had destroyed it just because he could. Around 10 o'clock, Sarah's mother knocked on her door. "Honey, are you okay?" she asked. "You've been very quiet today." "I'm fine, Mom," Sarah lied. "Just working on homework." But Sarah was not fine. She was the opposite of fine. She felt like something inside her was breaking, like a dam that had been holding back water for too long. All the months of Chad's mean comments and Brittany's cruel laughter were pressing down on her like a heavy weight. Sarah looked at her phone and thought about calling Maya. Her sister had given her a special number for emergencies, but Sarah had never used it. This felt like an emergency, but Sarah was not sure if it was the right kind. Maya was probably busy with important military things. She did not need to hear about high school drama. But as Sarah looked at her ruined project and thought about facing Chad tomorrow, she realized she could not do this alone anymore. She needed help. And Maya was the only person who had ever made her feel truly safe. With shaking hands, Sarah picked up her phone and dialed her sister's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Sarah almost hung up, but then she heard Maya's voice. "Sarah? Is everything okay? It's really late there." And suddenly, all the words Sarah had been holding back came pouring out. She told Maya about Chad and Brittany, about the months of bullying, about her ruined science project. She cried as she talked, and once she started, she could not stop. Maya listened to everything without interrupting. When Sarah finally finished talking, there was a long silence on the other end of the phone. "Sarah," Maya said, and her voice sounded different, colder. "Why didn't you tell me about this sooner?" "I didn't want to bother you," Sarah whispered. "You have important things to do." "Nothing is more important than you," Maya said firmly. "Nothing. Do you understand me?" Sarah nodded, even though Maya could not see her. For the first time in months, she felt like maybe she was not completely alone. Maybe someone would finally help her. "I'm going to fix this," Maya said. "I promise you, Sarah, this is going to end." After they hung up, Sarah felt a little better. Not completely better, but like maybe there was hope. She did not know what Maya could do from so far away, but her sister had never broken a promise. If Maya said she would fix this, then maybe she would find a way. Sarah fell asleep that night with her ruined project papers still spread across her desk. In her dreams, she was not the quiet farm girl who never fought back. In her dreams, she was brave and strong just like her sister. Maya Chen sat in the darkness of her tent, listening to her sister's broken voice through the satellite phone. Around her, the jungle of Southeast Asia was alive with night sounds, but Maya barely heard them. All she could focus on was Sarah's quiet crying and the pain in every word she spoke. Maya's tent was small and basic, just like everything else in their camp. She was part of a special unit that did not officially exist. Their missions were secret. Their location was classified, and their very presence in this part of the world was something the government would deny if anyone asked. But none of that mattered now. All that mattered was her sister. "Tell me again about this Chad Morrison," Maya said, her voice calm and controlled. But inside she felt a rage building that was hotter than the jungle heat. Sarah told her the whole story again. Every insult, every humiliation, every day of torture that she had endured while Maya was thousands of miles away. Maya listened carefully, filing away every detail like she was planning a mission. In a way, she was. When Sarah finished talking, Maya could hear her sister trying not to cry. "I'm sorry for calling so late," Sarah whispered. "I just didn't know what else to do." "Don't apologize," Maya said firmly. "You should have called me months ago. I'm your sister. Protecting you is my job." What Sarah did not know was that Maya had spent the last 3 years becoming someone very different from the girl who had left the farm. The military had trained her, but this special unit had transformed her into something else entirely, something dangerous. Maya's unit was called Task Force Mekong, though that name appeared in no official records. They operated along the Mekong River, moving between countries that were supposed to be off limits to American forces. Their job was to find people who had done terrible things and make sure they could never hurt anyone again. Maya had earned the nickname Mekong Ghost because of her ability to move through hostile territory without being seen. She could slip into enemy camps, gather information, and disappear before anyone knew she had been there. Her commanding officer said she had a natural talent for warfare that could not be taught. But Maya's most dangerous skill was not her ability to fight or hide. It was her ability to understand people, to see their weaknesses and fears, and to use that knowledge against them. The military called it psychological warfare. Maya just called it survival. In the 3 years since leaving home, Maya had been shot at, bombed, and hunted by people who wanted her dead. She had seen things that would give most people nightmares for the rest of their lives. She had done things that she could never tell her family about. And through it all, she had carried the memory of her quiet, gentle sister as a reminder of what she was fighting to protect. Now someone was hurting Sarah, and Maya felt something cold and deadly settle in her chest. She had killed enemy soldiers who were less of a threat to her family than this high school bully. "Sarah," Maya said carefully, "I want you to listen to me. Can you do that?" "Yes," Sarah whispered. "I'm going to come home for a few days. I'm going to fix this problem for you." "You can't just leave," Sarah said. "Don't you have orders or missions or something?" Maya looked around her tent at the equipment that could get her court-martialed if anyone found it missing. Night vision goggles, communication devices, weapons that were not supposed to exist. She thought about the mission briefing scheduled for tomorrow morning and the target they were supposed to eliminate next week. "Let me worry about that," Maya said. "I have some vacation time saved up." This was not exactly true. Maya did not have vacation time. What she had was a set of skills that would let her disappear from this jungle camp without anyone knowing she was gone until it was too late to stop her. She had done it before, on unofficial missions. Now she would do it, for the most important mission of her life. After hanging up with Sarah, Maya sat in the darkness and planned. Getting out of the camp would be easy. She knew the guard rotations and the blind spots in their security. She could be gone for a week before anyone thought to look for her seriously. Getting back to Minnesota would be harder, but not impossible. Maya had contacts all over Southeast Asia, people who owed her favors from previous missions. She could get false documents, civilian clothes, and transportation to a major airport. From there, it was just a matter of staying invisible until she reached home. But the hardest part would be controlling herself once she got there. Maya had been trained to eliminate threats quickly and permanently. Every instinct she had developed over the last 3 years would be telling her to end Chad Morrison and his friends in the most efficient way possible. She would have to fight against her own training to handle this the right way. Maya spent the rest of the night preparing for her unauthorized departure. She packed a small bag with civilian clothes and basic supplies. She disabled the tracking device in her gear and set up a delay in her communication schedule that would buy her a few extra hours before anyone noticed she was missing. Most importantly, she accessed the intelligence database and ran background checks on Chad Morrison, Brittany Walsh, and their families. Maya needed to understand who she was dealing with before she made her move. Information was always the most powerful weapon. What she found was interesting. Chad's father owned Morrison Farms, which was indeed the largest agricultural operation in the county. But the farm was in serious financial trouble. They had taken out huge loans to buy new equipment and expand their operations, and crop prices had been falling for 2 years. The Morrison family was on the edge of bankruptcy, though. They were working hard to hide it. Brittany's family was even more interesting. Her father was a county commissioner who had been under investigation for taking bribes from developers. Nothing had been proven yet, but the FBI had an open file on him. Brittany's mother had a gambling problem and owed money to some very unpleasant people. Maya smiled in the darkness. She had not even left the jungle yet, and she already knew more about her targets than they probably knew about themselves. This was going to be easier than she had expected. As the sun started to rise over the jungle, Maya made her move. She slipped out of her tent and moved through the camp like a shadow. The guards were tired and careless after their long night shift. They never saw her pass by their posts. Maya made it to the edge of the camp without being detected. From there, she had a 3-mile hike through dense jungle to reach her first contact point. The jungle was dangerous, full of animals and plants that could kill an unprepared person. But Maya was not unprepared. The jungle was her second home now. As she walked through the green darkness, Maya thought about Sarah, her quiet, gentle sister, who had never hurt anyone in her life, who fed chickens every morning and grew vegetables with their father, who believed in kindness and hope and all the good things that Maya had been losing touch with during her years of war. Chad Morrison had picked the wrong family to mess with. He thought he was bullying a defenseless farm girl, but he had actually declared war on someone who fought wars for a living. Someone who had spent 3 years learning how to destroy enemies without leaving a trace. Maya reached her contact point just as the sun fully cleared the horizon. A small boat was waiting for her, piloted by a man who asked no questions and would remember no faces. This was how things worked in her world. People helped each other without explanations, and everyone kept their secrets. As the boat pulled away from the shore, Maya looked back at the jungle one last time. When she returned, she would face serious consequences for leaving without permission. She might be court-martialed, sent to prison, or kicked out of the military entirely. Her entire career could be over, but Maya did not care about any of that. Some things were more important than careers or rules or consequences. Family was one of those things, and anyone who hurt her family was about to learn why Maya Chen had earned the nickname Mekong Ghost. The boat carried her down the river, toward the first step of her journey home. Maya sat in the bow and watched the water flow past, calm and deadly as a sleeping snake. She thought about Chad Morrison and wondered if he had any idea what was coming for him. Probably not. Bullies like Chad never expected consequences for their actions. They thought they could hurt people forever without anyone fighting back. They lived in a small, safe world where the worst thing that could happen was detention or suspension. Maya lived in a different world entirely. A world where justice was swift and permanent, where enemies were eliminated before they could strike again, where the only rule was survival. She was bringing a piece of that world home with her. Chad Morrison had about 48 hours left of thinking he was the toughest person in his small town. After that, he was going to meet someone who redefined the word tough. Someone who had learned to fight in places where losing meant dying. Someone who was very, very angry about what he had done to her sister. Maya smiled as the boat carried her toward home. This was going to be the most satisfying mission of her entire career. Sarah was feeding the chickens when she heard the car coming up the dirt road to their farm. It was early morning, and she was not expecting anyone. Her parents were still asleep, and the mail did not come until afternoon. Sarah looked up from scattering the feed and saw a taxi pulling into their driveway. The car stopped and someone got out. For a moment, Sarah thought she was looking in a mirror. The person walking toward her looked exactly like her, but something was different. The way she moved, the way she carried herself, the way her eyes seemed to see everything at once. "Maya," Sarah whispered, not believing what she was seeing. "Hey, little sister," Maya said with a smile that was both familiar and strange. Sarah dropped the bucket of chicken feed and ran toward her twin. They hugged for a long time, and Sarah felt safe for the first time in months. Maya was home. Maya would know what to do. But as they hugged, Sarah noticed things that were different about her sister. Maya's muscles were harder, her grip was stronger, and she smelled like soap and something else Sarah could not identify. When Maya stepped back, Sarah saw that her eyes were different too. They were older somehow, more serious, like they had seen things that changed them. "What are you doing here?" Sarah asked. "I thought you couldn't get leave time." "I pulled some strings," Maya said. "Emergency family situation. I have a week." This was not exactly true. Maya had used her training to disappear from her unit and travel halfway around the world without permission. But Sarah did not need to know that. Some truths were too complicated to explain. Maya looked around the farm while they walked toward the house. Everything looked smaller than she remembered. The barn needed paint and some of the fence posts were starting to lean. It was still home, but it felt like a place from a dream, too peaceful and innocent to be real. "Mom and Dad don't know you're coming," Sarah said. "They're going to be so surprised," Maya smiled. "I wanted to surprise everyone." Inside the house, their parents were just waking up. Sarah's mother, Linda Chen, came down the stairs in her bathrobe and stopped dead when she saw Maya sitting at the kitchen table. She stood there for a full minute staring before she started crying and rushed over to hug her daughter. "Maya, what are you doing here? Why didn't you call? Are you okay? Are you hurt?" Maya's father, David Chen, came down a few minutes later and had almost the same reaction. He was a quiet man who did not show emotion often, but he hugged Maya tight and did not let go for a long time. "I got some emergency leave," Maya explained again. "I wanted to come home and see everyone." For the next hour, they sat around the kitchen table drinking coffee and talking. Maya answered their questions about her military service, but she was careful about what she said. She told them she was stationed in Asia doing communication work. She did not mention the secret missions, the combat, or the fact that she was technically AWOL right now. While they talked, Maya watched Sarah. Her sister looked tired and stressed, with dark circles under her eyes that had not been there before. Sarah smiled and laughed, but Maya could see the sadness underneath. Someone had hurt her little sister, and Maya felt that cold anger settling in her chest again. "I was thinking I might visit Sarah's school today," Maya said casually. "See how things have changed since I graduated." Sarah's face went pale. "You don't need to do that. It's just boring high school stuff." "I'd like to see it," Maya insisted. "Maybe I could even come to class with you. It would be fun." David Chen frowned. "I'm not sure they allow visitors in classes anymore. Security is different now." Maya had already thought about this. "I could probably get permission. Military personnel visiting schools is usually okay. And Sarah and I look so much alike. I doubt anyone would even notice I'm not supposed to be there." This was the beginning of Maya's plan. She needed to see Sarah's school, understand the layout, and observe the people who had been tormenting her sister. But she could not just walk in as Maya Chen, mysterious military visitor. That would draw too much attention. She would go as Sarah Chen, quiet farm girl, and she would watch and learn and plan. "I don't think that's a good idea," Sarah said quickly. "What if you get in trouble with the military?" Maya looked at her sister with gentle eyes. "Let me worry about that. I want to see where you spend your days. It's important to me." That afternoon, Maya went through Sarah's closet and picked out clothes that would help her blend in. A simple pair of jeans, a plain sweater, and worn sneakers. She tied her hair back the same way Sarah did and practiced walking with smaller steps, hunched shoulders, and downcast eyes. The transformation was remarkable. Maya had been trained in disguise and infiltration, but this was different. She was not trying to become someone else. She was trying to become the person she used to be before the military changed her. "This is weird," Sarah said, watching Maya practice being her. "It's like looking at myself in a movie." "We're twins," Maya said. "It's supposed to be weird." But as Maya studied herself in the mirror, she realized how much she had changed. The girl who had left this farm 3 years ago was gone. In her place was someone harder, more dangerous, more aware of the violence that existed in the world. Maya had to work to remember how to be innocent and vulnerable. The next morning, Maya rode the school bus with Sarah. She sat in the same seat Sarah always used and watched the other students carefully. She cataloged faces, voices, and behaviors. She noted who seemed aggressive, who was afraid, and who had power. When Chad Morrison got on the bus, Maya felt every muscle in her body tense. This was the person who had been hurting her sister. He was bigger than she had expected, and clearly used to being in charge. But Maya had dealt with bigger, more dangerous people than Chad Morrison. Chad looked at Maya, sitting in Sarah's usual spot, and frowned. "You look different today, farm girl," he said. "New haircut?" Maya kept her eyes down and said nothing, just like Sarah would have done. But inside, she was memorizing everything about Chad. His voice, his mannerisms, the way he moved. She was also noting his weaknesses. He stood with most of his weight on his left leg, suggesting an old injury to his right ankle. He favored his right hand, leaving his left side slightly vulnerable. He was strong but not trained, powerful but not disciplined. Most importantly, he was used to people being afraid of him. He expected submission. That would be his downfall. Brittany Walsh got on at the next stop and immediately started her usual routine. "Oh my God, Sarah, you look so weird today. Did you actually brush your hair?" Maya looked up at Brittany and smiled. It was not Sarah's shy, nervous smile. It was something else entirely. Something that made Brittany take a step back without understanding why. "Just having a good day, I guess," Maya said quietly. At Jefferson High School, Maya followed Sarah's usual routine. She went to Sarah's locker, sat in Sarah's classes, and ate lunch at Sarah's usual table. But she was not really Sarah. She was a trained observer studying a target environment. Maya noted the locations of security cameras, the movement patterns of teachers and administrators, and the social dynamics between different groups of students. She identified the popular kids, the outcasts, the bullies, and the bystanders. She mapped the power structure of the school like she would map an enemy base. During lunch, Chad and his friends approached Maya's table. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment she would see Sarah's tormentors in action. Well, Chad said, sitting down across from Maya without being invited. "Little Sarah Chen is eating all by herself again. How sad." Maya looked up at him with Sarah's face, but her own eyes. Chad was bigger than her, but Maya had killed people bigger than Chad. He was aggressive, but Maya had faced enemies who were actually dangerous. He thought he was intimidating, but he had no idea what real intimidation looked like. "I'm fine," Maya said softly, playing her role. "Are you?" Brittany asked, pulling out her phone. "Because you look really pathetic sitting here all alone." Maya watched Brittany point the phone at her and felt a flash of rage so hot it almost broke her careful control. This was how they humiliated her sister. This was how they had made Sarah feel small and helpless. But Maya was not helpless. She was one of the most dangerous people in this entire school, possibly in this entire town. She could end this confrontation in about 3 seconds if she wanted to. She could put Chad on the ground before he knew what was happening. She could make Brittany's phone disappear in ways that would seem like magic. Instead, she did what Sarah would do. She looked down at her hands and said nothing. "God, you're boring," Chad said, standing up. "No wonder you don't have any friends." As Chad and his friends walked away, Maya committed every detail to memory. Their faces, their voices, their casual cruelty. She thought about Sarah sitting at this same table every day, enduring this same treatment, with no one to help her. That was about to change. After school, Maya rode the bus home with Sarah and listened to her sister apologize for the bullies' behavior. "They're usually worse than that," Sarah said. "I guess you got lucky." Maya almost laughed. Lucky. If Sarah only knew that her quiet twin sister had spent the day fighting every trained instinct she had, resisting the urge to turn Chad Morrison into a cautionary tale about what happened when you messed with the wrong family. That night, Maya lay in her old bed and stared at the ceiling. Maya woke up before dawn just like she had every day for the past 3 years. But this morning was different. This morning she was not preparing for a mission in some foreign jungle. She was preparing to protect her sister in the hallways of Jefferson High School. She dressed carefully in Sarah's clothes again, but this time she paid attention to different details. She noted which pockets could conceal small items, which shoes would be best for quick movement, and how to position herself to always have an escape route. These were habits that had kept her alive in combat zones, and they felt strange in the peaceful setting of her childhood bedroom. On the bus, Maya sat in Sarah's usual spot and watched Chad Morrison more carefully. Yesterday, she had been focused on staying in character. Today, she was gathering intelligence. She watched how Chad interacted with his friends, how he chose his targets, and how he used his size and popularity to control other students. Chad was a classic bully, Maya realized. He picked on people who seemed weak and avoided anyone who might fight back. He fed off fear and submission. Take those away and he would collapse like a house of cards. Maya also watched the other students on the bus. She saw how they all kept their heads down when Chad was being cruel. She saw the relief on their faces when he picked on someone else instead of them. Everyone was afraid, and that fear gave Chad his power. At school, Maya continued her observation mission. She went to Sarah's classes and sat in Sarah's seat, but she was really studying the social ecosystem that her sister had to navigate every day. She watched teachers who either did not notice the bullying or chose to ignore it. She saw administrators who were more concerned with test scores than student safety. She identified the kids who were natural allies and the ones who were potential threats. During first period English, Maya noticed something interesting. Mrs. Patterson was talking about character development in literature, and several students were participating in the discussion. Maya realized that Sarah was probably one of the smartest kids in the class, but she never spoke up because she was afraid of drawing attention to herself. "Can anyone give me an example of a character who shows courage?" Mrs. Patterson asked. Maya knew Sarah would have a good answer. Her sister loved books and always had thoughtful things to say about them. But Sarah had learned to stay silent to protect herself. Maya raised her hand. Mrs. Patterson looked surprised. "Yes, Sarah?" "Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird," Maya said. He knew that defending Tom Robinson would make him unpopular, but he did it anyway because it was right. He showed that real courage is not about being fearless. It's about doing what's right even when you're afraid. The class was quiet. Mrs. Patterson smiled. "That's an excellent analysis, Sarah. I'm glad you decided to participate today." Maya saw Chad turn around to stare at her with confusion. This was not how the quiet farm girl was supposed to behave. Good. Maya wanted him to be confused. Confused people made mistakes. During second period math, Maya continued her psychological profile of Chad. She watched him try to copy answers from other students and saw him get frustrated when he could not understand the problems. Chad was not as smart as he pretended to be, and he resented students who were better at academics than he was. Maya also noticed that Chad was left-handed, which confirmed her earlier assessment about his physical vulnerabilities. More importantly, she saw that he was lazy. He expected things to come easily to him, and he got angry when they did not. In third period science, Maya learned more about the project that Chad had destroyed. Mr. Garcia was talking about renewable energy, and Maya could see how much work Sarah had put into her research. The destroyed project represented weeks of careful study and genuine passion for the subject. Maya felt that cold anger building in her chest again. Chad had not just destroyed homework. He had destroyed something that Sarah cared about, something that represented her hopes and dreams for the future. That was unforgivable. During lunch, Maya sat at Sarah's usual table and waited. She knew Chad would come. Bullies were predictable that way. They had routines and patterns, and they rarely deviated from what worked for them. Sure enough, Chad approached her table with his usual group of followers. But this time, Maya was ready for him. "Hey there, farm girl," Chad said, sitting down across from Maya without permission. "You seem different in English class today, almost like you had a brain or something." Maya looked up at him with steady eyes. Yesterday she had looked down and stayed quiet. Today she met his gaze directly. It was a small change, but Chad noticed it immediately. "Maybe I do have a brain," Maya said calmly. "Maybe you just never bothered to notice." Chad's friends exchanged glances. This was not how their usual routine was supposed to go. Sarah Chen was supposed to be quiet and scared, not confident and direct. "Careful there, Sarah," Brittany said, pulling out her phone. "You're starting to sound a little too smart for your own good." Maya looked at the phone and then at Brittany. "Go ahead and record me," she said. "I have nothing to hide." This was psychological warfare. Maya was taking away their most powerful weapon by refusing to be afraid of it. She was also planting a seed of doubt in their minds. Was this really the same girl they had been tormenting? Or was something else going on? Chad leaned forward, trying to use his size to intimidate Maya. "I don't know what your problem is today, but you need to remember your place." Maya leaned forward too. matching his aggressive posture. "And what place is that exactly?" For just a moment, Maya let her real self show through. Her eyes went cold and dangerous, and her voice carried a hint of the steel that came from 3 years of combat training. Chad saw something in her face that made him blink and lean back slightly. Then Maya smiled and became Sarah again. "I'm just having a good day, I guess. Is that okay with you?" Chad stood up, clearly uncomfortable with how the conversation had gone. "Whatever. You're still a weird farm girl and everyone knows it." As Chad and his friends walked away, Maya heard one of them whisper, "Did Sarah seem different to you today?" "Yeah," another one replied. "Like, scary different." Maya smiled to herself. Phase 1 of her mission was complete. She had planted doubt and confusion in the enemy ranks. They were starting to question their assumptions about their target. That would make them careless. For the rest of the day, Maya continued her reconnaissance. She followed Sarah's schedule, but made small changes to her behavior. She spoke up in class when she knew the answers. She walked with her head up instead of looking at the ground. She made eye contact with other students instead of avoiding them. The changes were subtle, but they had a big effect. Other students started noticing Sarah in a different way. Teachers began paying more attention to her contributions. Even the school administrators seemed to see her differently. Maya was showing everyone what Sarah was capable of when she was not being held back by fear. After school, Maya rode the bus home and thought about what she had learned. Chad Morrison was a classic bully who depended on fear and intimidation. Brittany Walsh was his lieutenant, using social media as a weapon. Their followers were mostly scared kids who went along with the bullying to protect themselves. But Maya had also seen something else. She had seen other students who were tired of the bullying, teachers who would support a student who stood up for herself, and administrators who would act if they had enough evidence of wrongdoing. The ecosystem at Jefferson High School was not as toxic as it seemed. It just needed someone to change the balance of power. That evening, Maya sat with Sarah in their shared bedroom and debriefed like she would after any mission. "How was school today?" Sarah asked. "Did Chad bother you?" "A little," Maya said. "But I handled it differently than usual." "What do you mean?" Maya looked at her sister carefully. "Sarah, you're smarter and stronger than you think you are. You've been letting these bullies define who you are, but that's not who you really are." Sarah looked confused. "I don't understand." "Tomorrow I want you to try something," Maya said. "I want you to be yourself. The real you, not the scared, quiet version that Chad expects to see. Be the girl who loves science and reads great books and has thoughtful things to say about the world." "But what if they make fun of me?" Maya smiled. "Let me worry about that. Trust me, Sarah. It's time for you to stop hiding." What Sarah did not know was that Maya had spent the day laying the groundwork for a much larger operation. She had identified weaknesses in the enemy ranks, found potential allies, and begun to shift the social dynamics of the school. Tomorrow, Maya would stop pretending to be Sarah and reveal her true identity. But first, she wanted to give Sarah a chance to find her own strength. Because the best way to defeat a bully was not to destroy them from the outside. It was to help their victim discover that they were never really helpless at all. Maya had spent 3 years learning how to fight wars. Now she was going to teach her sister that sometimes the most important battles were fought not with weapons, but with courage and truth and the refusal to let fear win. The reconnaissance phase was complete. Tomorrow the real mission would begin. Maya woke up on the 3rd day with a sense of purpose that felt familiar from her military missions. But this time, she was not going to hide behind Sarah's identity. This time, she was going to be herself. She dressed differently that morning. Instead of Sarah's loose, comfortable clothes, Maya chose fitted jeans and a simple black t-shirt that allowed for free movement. She tied her hair back in a tight ponytail and looked at herself in the mirror. The girl looking back was not Sarah, Chen, the quiet farm girl. This was Maya Chen, Special Forces operative, and she was done playing games. On the bus, Maya sat in Sarah's usual spot, but carried herself completely differently. Her posture was straight and alert. Her eyes scanned the other passengers like she was assessing potential threats. When Chad Morrison got on the bus, he immediately noticed the change. "Well, well," Chad said, walking down the aisle toward Maya. "Look who's trying to act tough today." Maya looked up at him with calm, steady eyes. "I'm not acting," she said quietly. Something in her voice made Chad hesitate. It was not the voice of the scared farm girl he was used to bullying. It was something else entirely, something that suggested he might want to reconsider his approach. But Chad was too used to being the biggest, strongest person in his small world. He could not imagine that the quiet girl in front of him might be dangerous in ways he could not understand. "What did you say to me?" Chad asked, leaning over Maya's seat. Maya stood up slowly. She was several inches shorter than Chad, but something about the way she moved made her seem larger, more dangerous. "I said I'm not acting. I'm Sarah's sister, Maya, and you and I need to have a conversation." The entire bus went quiet. Sarah had a sister, and she was here? Chad's friends gathered around him, but they all looked uncertain. This girl looked exactly like Sarah, but everything about her was different. The way she stood, the way she spoke, the way she looked at them like she was deciding whether they were worth her time. "Sister?" Chad laughed, but it sounded forced. Sarah never mentioned having a sister. "Sarah doesn't like to talk about me," Maya said. "I've been away for a while. Military deployment. But I'm back now, and I've been hearing some very interesting stories about how you've been treating my little sister." Brittany Walsh pushed forward, holding up her phone. "Oh my God, this is perfect. Sarah has a big sister who thinks she's scary." Maya looked at the phone and then at Brittany. Her expression did not change, but something shifted in the air around her. It was like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. "Put the phone away," Maya said quietly. "Or what?" Brittany asked, trying to sound brave. Maya moved faster than anyone on the bus could follow. One moment she was standing normally. The next moment Brittany's phone was in Maya's hand and Brittany was staring at her empty palm in shock. "How did you do that?" Brittany whispered. Maya looked at the phone and then handed it back to Brittany. 3 years of advanced training," she said, "among other things." Chad tried to step forward, but Maya shifted her stance in a way that made him stop. She was not blocking his path or threatening him directly, but something about her positioning suggested that moving closer would be a very bad idea. "Look," Chad said, trying to sound reasonable. "I don't know what Sarah told you, but we were just joking around. It's not a big deal." Maya tilted her head slightly like she was studying. "An interesting insect. Joking around? Is that what you call destroying her science project, making her cry, humiliating her in front of the entire school?" "She's just being dramatic," Chad said, but his voice was not as confident as usual. Maya took one small step forward. It was barely noticeable, but Chad immediately took a step back. "Let me explain something to you, Chad. My sister is the kindest, most gentle person I know. She has never hurt anyone in her entire life. She feeds chickens every morning and grows vegetables with our father and believes in the goodness of people even when they don't deserve it." Maya's voice was still quiet, but everyone on the bus was listening. "And for some reason you decided to make her your target. You decided to take her kindness and use it against her. You decided to hurt someone who has never done anything to hurt you." Chad tried to interrupt, but Maya continued. "Now, I am not like my sister. I have hurt people. I have hurt people who were bigger and stronger and better trained than you. I have hurt people who actually deserved it. And right now, I am trying very hard to remember why I should not hurt you." The bus was completely silent now. Even the driver was listening, though he was pretending to focus on the road. Chad's friends had backed away from him, leaving him to face Maya alone. "You can't threaten me," Chad said, but his voice was shaking slightly. "I'll report you to the school. I'll call the police." Maya smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "Go ahead, but first let me ask you something. Do you know what Special Operations Forces do, Chad? Do you know what kind of training they get?" Chad did not answer. "They learn how to gather intelligence," Maya continued. "How to find information about people, how to learn their secrets, how to discover their weaknesses." Maya pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket. "For example, I learned that your family's farm is 3 months behind on loan payments. I learned that your father has been lying to the bank about his crop yields. I learned that you've been buying test answers from Jake Torres for 2 years, and that you cheated on your SATs. Chad's face went white. How did you? I also learned about Brittany's father and his little bribery problem, and about her mother's gambling debts. Amazing what you can find out when you know where to look. Maya folded the paper and put it back in her pocket. Now here's what's going to happen. You are going to stop bothering my sister. You are going to stop bothering any other students. You are going to apologize to Sarah for destroying her project and help her rebuild it. And you are going to do all of this because you want to, not because I made you. And if I don't? Chad asked, trying to sound defiant. Maya's smile got even colder. Then I stopped being nice about this. And Chad? You really don't want to see what happens when I stop being nice. The bus pulled up to the school, and Maya walked past Chad without another word. As she stepped off the bus, she heard Brittany whisper to her friends, "Did you see how fast she moved? Did you see her eyes?" At school, word spread quickly that Sarah Chen had a sister, and that her sister was not someone you wanted to mess with. Students who had watched Sarah get bullied for months suddenly found themselves looking at Maya with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Maya went to the main office and asked to speak with the principal. She identified herself as Sarah Chen's sister and explained that she was home on military leave. She requested permission to observe classes for the day to see how her sister was doing academically. Principal Williams was impressed by Maya's polite, professional manner and granted the request immediately. He had no idea that he had just given a Special Forces operative complete access to his school. Maya spent the morning attending Sarah's classes, but this time she was not hiding. She introduced herself to the teachers as Sarah's sister and asked thoughtful questions about the curriculum. She praised Sarah's academic work and mentioned how proud their family was of her achievements. The effect was immediate. Teachers who had barely noticed Sarah before suddenly saw her in a new light. They realized that the quiet girl in the back of the class was actually one of their best students. They began calling on her more often and encouraging her to participate. During lunch, Maya sat at Sarah's usual table, but this time she was not alone. Several other students joined her, curious about Sarah's mysterious sister. Maya was charming and friendly, asking about their interests and making them feel important. But she was also watching for Chad and his friends, watching for anyone else who might be bullying vulnerable students, watching for the social dynamics that kept the school's power structure in place. Chad and his group stayed far away from Maya's table. Word had already spread about the confrontation on the bus, and no one wanted to test the limits of the new girl's patience. After school, Maya waited by the lockers. She knew Chad would have to come this way to catch his bus home. When he appeared, walking with his usual group of friends, Maya stepped into his path. "Chad," she said pleasantly. "I was hoping we could finish our conversation." Chad stopped, looking trapped. His friends gathered around him, but they all looked nervous. Maya had that effect on people now. "I don't have anything to say to you," Chad said. "That's okay," Maya replied. "I have something to say to you. Tomorrow morning you're going to find Sarah and apologize for destroying her project. You're going to offer to help her rebuild it, and you're going to mean it." "What if I don't?" Maya pulled out her phone and showed Chad a photo. It was a picture of him cheating on a test, taken from the school security cameras. "Then this goes to Principal Williams, along with some other interesting photos I managed to find." Chad stared at the phone in shock. "How did you get that?" "Those cameras are supposed to be secure," Maya smiled. 3 years of advanced training, remember? Chad, you have no idea what I'm capable of when I really try. The question is, do you want to find out? Chad looked at his friends, but they were all backing away from him. They had seen enough to know that Maya Chen was not someone they wanted to fight. The next morning, Maya arrived at school early. She had work to do before the regular school day began, and she wanted to make sure everything was in place for what she had planned. This was not just about protecting Sarah anymore. This was about dismantling an entire system of fear and replacing it with something better. Maya went to the library and asked to use one of the computers. She had spent the night gathering more information about Chad Morrison, Brittany Walsh, and their circle of followers. What she had discovered was a network of dishonesty, cruelty, and corruption that went far beyond simple bullying. Using skills she had learned in military intelligence, Maya had accessed school records, social media accounts, and even some local government databases. She now had enough evidence to destroy the reputations of several students and at least one prominent family in the community. But Maya was not interested in destruction for its own sake. She was interested in justice, and justice meant giving people a chance to change before facing consequences. At 7:30, Maya positioned herself near Sarah's locker. She wanted to see if Chad would keep his promise to apologize. If he did, she would know that her psychological approach was working. If he did not, she would have to escalate to more direct methods. Sarah arrived at her usual time, walking with her head down and her shoulders hunched. She still moved like someone who expected to be attacked at any moment. Maya felt a flash of anger at how thoroughly the bullies had damaged her sister's confidence. Chad appeared a few minutes later, walking slowly toward Sarah's locker. His usual group of friends was nowhere to be seen. He looked nervous and uncomfortable, like a man walking to his own execution. Maya watched from a distance as Chad approached Sarah. She could not hear what he was saying, but she could see Sarah's face change from confusion to surprise to cautious hope. Chad was actually apologizing. More than that, he was offering to help Sarah rebuild her science project. Sarah looked around nervously, clearly expecting this to be some kind of cruel joke. But Chad kept talking, and gradually, Sarah began to nod. Maya smiled. The first phase of her plan was working, but Maya was not finished. Changing Chad's behavior towards Sarah was just the beginning. She needed to make sure that the entire culture of bullying at Jefferson High School was dismantled permanently. During first period, Maya attended Sarah's English class as a visitor. Mrs. Patterson was discussing the themes of courage and justice in literature, and Maya saw her opportunity. "Mrs. Patterson," Maya said, raising her hand, "I wonder if we could talk about real-world applications of these themes. How do we stand up to injustice in our own lives?" Mrs. Patterson looked interested. "That's an excellent question, Maya. What do you think?" Maya stood up and faced the class. "I think most injustice continues because good people stay silent. They see wrongdoing, but they don't speak up because they're afraid of becoming targets themselves." She looked directly at several students who she knew had witnessed Sarah's bullying, but had done nothing to stop it. But silence in the face of injustice is a form of participation. When we allow bullies to hurt innocent people, we become part of the problem. The class was completely quiet. Maya could see that her words were hitting home with several students who looked ashamed of their own inaction. "What do you suggest we do about it?" asked Jennifer Martinez, a girl who Maya had identified as a potential ally. Maya smiled. "We stop being afraid. We support each other. We report wrongdoing when we see it. And we remember that bullies only have power when their victims feel alone." After class, Jennifer approached Maya in the hallway. "Are you really Sarah's sister?" she asked. "I am," Maya replied. "I'm sorry," Jennifer said quietly. "I saw what Chad and Brittany were doing to her, but I didn't know how to help." Maya put a gentle hand on Jennifer's shoulder. "You can help now. Sarah needs friends, real friends who will stand with her." Jennifer nodded eagerly. "I'd like that. I've always thought Sarah seemed really nice, but I was afraid to talk to her because of Chad." "Fear is how bullies control people," Maya said. "Take away the fear and they lose their power." Throughout the morning, Maya had similar conversations with other students. She was building a network of support around Sarah, creating a social structure that would protect her even after Maya was gone. During lunch, Maya put the next phase of her plan into action. She had arranged to meet with Principal Williams to discuss what she called systematic harassment issues at the school. "Mr. Williams," Maya said, sitting across from him in his office. I'm concerned about the hostile environment that some students face here. Principal Williams looked uncomfortable. If you're referring to normal teenage social dynamics, Maya interrupted him gently. I'm referring to documented patterns of harassment, intimidation, and assault. She placed a folder on his desk. I've compiled evidence of multiple incidents involving several students. Principal Williams opened the folder and his face went pale. Inside were photos, video screenshots, and detailed reports of bullying incidents that had occurred over the past 6 months. Maya had gathered evidence from security cameras, social media posts, and witness statements. How did you obtain this information? Principal Williams asked. Let's just say I have experience in investigation and intelligence gathering, Maya replied. The important thing is that you now have documented proof of systematic harassment. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Principal Williams looked through the evidence again. It was overwhelming and undeniable. This is extensive. I had no idea the situation was this serious. Most victims don't report harassment because they fear retaliation, Maya explained. The bullies count on that silence to continue their behavior. But silence is not an option anymore. Maya leaned forward. I'm not asking you to expel anyone. I'm asking you to implement real anti-bullying policies with actual consequences. I'm asking you to create a reporting system that protects victims, and I'm asking you to send a clear message that this behavior will not be tolerated. Principal Williams nodded slowly. You're right. We need to do better. I'll call a special assembly for tomorrow morning to address these issues. Good, Maya said. And Mr. Williams, my sister Sarah is one of your best students. She deserves to feel safe in her own school. That afternoon, Maya found Brittany Walsh alone by her locker. It was time for the final conversation in her campaign to end the bullying. Brittany, Maya said pleasantly. Do you have a minute? Brittany turned around and immediately looked nervous. What do you want? Maya smiled. I wanted to talk to you about your future. You're a senior, right? Planning to go to college? Maybe, Brittany said suspiciously. Why? Maya pulled out her phone and showed Brittany a screenshot. It was from Brittany's own social media account, showing her cyberbullying multiple students over the past year. Did you know that college admissions officers check social media accounts now? Maya asked conversationally. They're particularly interested in applicants who show patterns of harassment or cruelty toward others. Brittany's face went white. You can't send that to colleges, that's not fair. You're right, Maya said. It wouldn't be fair, just like it wasn't fair when you filmed my sister crying and posted it online for everyone to mock. Maya put her phone away. But I'm not going to send anything to anyone, Brittany, because you're going to delete all the cruel posts you've ever made. You're going to apologize to every student you've hurt. And you're going to use your social media influence to promote kindness instead of cruelty. And if I don't, Maya's smile disappeared. Then you'll discover that your father's legal troubles are about to become very public, along with your mother's gambling debts. Amazing how much information becomes available when the right people start asking questions. Brittany stared at Tew, Maya in shock. How do you know about that? I know about a lot of things, Maya replied. The question is, are you going to be part of the solution or part of the problem? Brittany looked around the hallway nervously. A few other students were watching their conversation with interest. What do you want me to do? Maya handed her a piece of paper. This is a list of every student you've bullied or harassed this year. You're going to contact each one personally and apologize. You're going to make it right. Brittany looked at the list and her hands started shaking. There were dozens of names on it. This will take forever. Then you better get started, Maya said. Because if even one person on that list doesn't receive a genuine apology by the end of the week, our conversation takes a very different turn. That evening, Maya sat with Sarah in their bedroom and watched her sister work on rebuilding her science project. Chad had actually followed through on his promise to help, providing Sarah with new materials and even offering to help with some of the research. I don't understand what happened, Sarah said. It's like everyone at school suddenly became different people. Maya smiled. Maybe they just needed someone to show them a different way to behave. But why did Chad apologize? Why is Brittany being nice to people? Why are kids who never talked to me before suddenly wanting to be friends? Maya looked at her sister carefully. Sometimes bullies only stop when they realize there are consequences for their actions, and sometimes good people only speak up when they realize they're not alone. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Maya's final morning at home began like her first morning back, with the sound of chickens greeting the dawn. But everything else had changed. As she walked to the chicken coop, she could see Sarah through the kitchen window, sitting at the table, with her rebuilt science project spread out in front of her. Her sister was smiling as she worked, something Maya had not seen in far too long. The science project was better than before. Chad had helped Sarah find new materials, and Jennifer Martinez had contributed additional research. What had started as one girl's assignment had become a collaborative effort that brought together former enemies and new friends. It was a perfect example of how something broken could be rebuilt stronger than before. "Good morning, ladies," Maya said to the chickens as she scattered their feed. They clucked and rushed toward the food just like always. But Maya knew this would be the last time she would do this morning chore for a while. Maybe for a long time. Her unauthorized leave was over. In 6 hours, she would be on a plane back to Southeast Asia to face whatever consequences awaited her. Court-martial, prison, dishonorable discharge. Maya had considered all the possibilities and decided they were worth it. Some things mattered, more than military careers. At breakfast, the whole family sat together one last time. David and Linda Chen tried to act normal, but Maya could see the worry in their eyes. They knew she had to leave again, but they did not know why she had really come home or what she had done to help Sarah. "The school called yesterday," Linda said carefully. "Principal Williams wanted to thank us for raising such a remarkable daughter." Maya looked at Sarah, who was blushing. "What did you do, little sister?" "I gave a speech at the special assembly," Sarah said quietly, "about bullying and standing up for each other. Mr. Williams asked me to talk about my experience." Maya felt a surge of pride. This was what she had been hoping for. Sarah was not just being protected from bullying. She was becoming a leader in the fight against it. "What did you say?" Maya asked. Sarah's voice grew stronger as she talked. "I told them about how bullying made me feel invisible and worthless. But I also told them that nobody has to feel that way. I said that when good people stand together, bullies lose their power." David Chen smiled at his daughters. The principal said it was the best anti-bullying presentation he had ever heard. He wants Sarah to help train other schools in the district. Maya reached across the table and squeezed Sarah's hand. "I'm proud of you." "I learned from watching you," Sarah said. "You showed me that I don't have to be afraid." After breakfast, Maya spent the morning teaching Sarah basic self-defense techniques. Not the advanced combat skills that Maya had learned in the military, but simple moves that could help Sarah feel more confident and safe. "The most important thing is not the physical techniques," Maya explained as they practiced in the barn. "It's the mental attitude. Bullies look for victims who seem afraid and helpless. If you carry yourself with confidence, most of them will look for easier targets." They practiced basic stances, simple blocks, and ways to break free from grabs. But mostly, they talked about confidence, awareness, and the importance of trusting your instincts. "What if someone bigger tries to hurt me?" Sarah asked. Maya smiled. "Then you remember that size is not everything. I'm smaller than Chad Morrison, but he was afraid of me. Why do you think that was?" Sarah thought about it. "Because you believed in yourself. Because you weren't afraid." "Exactly. Fear is a choice. Sarah, you can choose to be afraid or you can choose to be strong. The choice is always yours." That afternoon, Maya returned to Jefferson High School one last time. She wanted to see the changes she had set in motion and make sure they would continue after she was gone. The school felt different now. Students walked the hallways with less fear. Teachers seemed more aware of their students' social dynamics. Even the lunchroom had a different atmosphere, more inclusive, less segregated by social hierarchies. Maya found Chad Morrison in the library, tutoring a younger student in math. It was a remarkable transformation from the arrogant bully she had first encountered on the school bus. "Chad," Maya said, approaching his table. "Can we talk for a minute?" Chad looked nervous, but he followed Maya to a quiet corner of the library. "Am I in trouble again?" Maya shook her head. "Actually, I wanted to thank you. You kept your word about helping Sarah, and you've been making real changes in how you treat other students." Chad looked surprised. "I thought you hated me." "I never hated you," Maya said honestly. "I hated what you were doing. There's a difference. Everyone deserves a chance to change and become better." Chad was quiet for a moment. "Why did you really come back? Sarah said you were in the military, but I've never seen anyone like you. The way you moved, the things you knew about my family, that wasn't normal military training." Maya considered how much to tell him. "Let's just say I've had some unusual experiences. The important thing is that I came back because someone was hurting my sister, and I will always come back for family." Chad nodded slowly. "I'm sorry about what I did to Sarah. I know saying sorry doesn't fix everything, but I really mean it." "I believe you," Maya said. "And Chad, you have a choice now. You can go back to being a bully when I'm gone, or you can continue being the person who helps younger students with their homework. Which person do you want to be?" "The second one," Chad said without hesitation. "Being a bully made me feel powerful, but it didn't make me feel good about myself. This feels better." Maya found Brittany Walsh in the computer lab working on a website about cyberbullying prevention. The transformation was just as remarkable as Chad's, though Maya suspected it was motivated more by fear than genuine remorse. "How's the apology project going?" Maya asked. Brittany looked up from her computer. "I've contacted 43 people so far. Some of them won't even talk to me, which I guess I deserve." Maya pulled up a chair. "Forgiveness takes time, Brittany. The important thing is that you're trying to make things right." "Can I ask you something?" Brittany said. "What kind of military training did you really have? Because normal soldiers don't know the things you know." Maya smiled. "The kind that teaches you to protect innocent people from those who would hurt them. The kind that gives you the skills to fight for what's right." Brittany was quiet for a moment. "Are you going to keep watching us? Making sure we don't go back to the way things were?" "I don't need to watch you," Maya said. "You're going to police yourselves now, because you've learned that there are consequences for cruelty and rewards for kindness. The choice of which path to follow is yours." That evening, Maya packed her small bag with the same careful efficiency she used for military deployments. But this time, she was not just leaving for another mission. She was leaving behind something precious that she had helped to build. Sarah sat on the bed, watching her sister prepare to leave. "How long will you be gone this time?" Maya paused in her packing. "I don't know, Sarah. I might be in some trouble when I get back. Taking unauthorized leave is a serious offense in the military." "Was it worth it?" Sarah asked quietly. Maya looked at her sister, really looked at her. Sarah sat straighter now, made eye contact when she spoke, and had a light in her eyes that had been missing for months. She was becoming the strong, confident person she had always been meant to be. "Yes," Maya said firmly. "It was absolutely worth it." "What if the bullying starts again when you're gone?" Maya sat down next to Sarah and put an arm around her shoulders. "It won't. Do you know why?" Sarah shook her head. "Because you're not the same person who was being bullied before. You're stronger now. You have friends who will support you. You have teachers who are paying attention. And most importantly, you have the knowledge that you deserve to be treated with respect." Maya pulled something from her bag, a small silver pendant on a chain. "This was a gift from someone in my unit. It's supposed to provide protection to the person who wears it." Sarah took the pendant and looked at it closely. It was simple but beautiful, with symbols that she did not recognize carved into the silver. "I want you to wear this," Maya said. "Not because you need protection from bullies, but because you need to remember how strong you are. Every time you look at it, remember that you are Sarah Chen, and you are not afraid of anyone." The next morning, Maya said goodbye to her parents and her sister at the airport. There were tears and long hugs, but there was also pride and hope. Maya had come home to save Sarah, but in the process, she had helped Sarah save herself. On the plane back to Southeast Asia, Maya thought about what awaited her. At best, she would face disciplinary action and lose her security clearance. At worst, she would be court-martialed and imprisoned. But she had no regrets. She had done what needed to be done. The plane flew through the night, carrying Maya back, toward her other life. But part of her would always remain at the farm in Minnesota, watching over her sister and making sure she stayed safe. 3 months later, Maya received a letter from Sarah. Her sister had been elected to the student council and was working with the administration to implement new anti-bullying policies throughout the district. Chad Morrison had become one of her allies in this effort, using his former status as a popular student to influence others toward kindness. The letter also contained a newspaper clipping.